Right. Okay. Right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome, Paul.
Hi, apologies for the personnel. I won't use the word.
Well, these things happen. Right. Apologies. Francesca O'Brien has sent in an apology. Have we got any more, Paul?
Possibly Phil Parkin, Phil Keaton, if he's laid back from a parents' evening.
Yeah, I did have that one. Anything from Helen Nelson, or is she off this committee now?
Yeah, she's off this committee. She stepped back a while back. I think her name's been put on in error.
Okay. Well, she may have come back on, so, okay. Right, declarations of interest? Any declaration? No, okay, move on. Minutes of the previous meeting of the committee, 19th of December. Everyone happy with that?
Yeah, I wasn't here, so.
Okay. Item number 4 on the agenda. Friends of Klein Gardens. It's a grant application for £1,000 towards Klein in Bloom. Now, I'm sure you're all aware that, and certainly the RFO is aware that we haven't got anything left in the box, so we can deal with both of these grant applications now, or we can deal with it when we do the budget monitoring report. Which way would you like to do it? Don't mind?
No, I mean, well, I guess we could discuss them now and, decide in principle whether we actually want to support them. And, we might have to make a decision to say we'll come back to you in April when we've got funding.
Yeah, that would have been the route that I would have taken, but I wouldn't want to start spending next year's budget. To be honest, I have spoken with Paul. There's nothing in contingency that can cover these sorts of grants. Anyway, the first one is Klein Gardens, and I personally would want to support that application. So, but we haven't got any money to pay it, to do it. So, similarly, any other views from anyone else on that one?
Well, as I say, it does. Sorry, it doesn't actually start till the end of April, so we could theoretically, if we agreed to agree in principle with the money being paid after the 1st of April.
Yeah, I think Klein in Bloom normally hits off about May, doesn't it?
Yeah, it says it's from the 30th of April to the 28th of May. So, there is enough time for us to make that payment before it starts if we agree to support.
Well, those that are in favour of that, approving it in principle and to be paid out of next year's budget. Anyone against? So the rest of us are in favour. Can you make sure that's noted, please, Paul?
Yeah, I'll add that to the minutes, yeah.
Thanks very much. And then item number 5 is Newton Primary School. It's a grant application for £9,216 towards a woodland project in the school grounds. And I think Mr. Thomas might wish to say something on this.
I should have declared this at the start. Sorry, I'm a governor, and I did actually write the grant application. So I don't think I can take part in the conversation any further. But if we adjourn the meeting, I could explain it in a bit more depth if everyone would accept that.
Well, I think you've probably all had the opportunity to look at the grant application form. It's pretty descriptive as to what it's about. And again, what is the consensus there, Rebecca?
Yeah, I mean, I have a question that perhaps Will could answer if we are able to adjourn, which is...
Yes, sorry, Ian, do you want to adjourn the meeting so we can ask Will questions? And then
You
he can
froze
leave
there.
the meeting and we can make a decision.
So the suggestion, Ian, is that we adjourn so that if we've got questions, Will can answer them and then he can go for the vote.
Okay. Can we do that, Paul?
Yeah, I've recorded that, Chair.
Okay.
So my question is the age-old question for applications from schools, which is about wider community benefit. So to what extent will families or anyone really, not just pupils of the school, be able to use the woodland site?
Yeah, so it is a fenced area inside the school. So only it's not the sort of site where people will be able to access, members of the public will be able to access. However, obviously you've got breakfast club and after school club and things like that, which would obviously benefit from it. And a lot of the additional learning needs children are proposed to be taught out there. So it isn't, it's woodland management and also making the area like an outdoor classroom, big outside chair, a bit of work to the pond, and just to make it a bit more of a nicer experience. They're obviously seeing other schools put in very sizable grants and sort of thinking, well, you know, we're going to put this in. And they asked me and Rob both did it jointly actually. This application. So yeah, does that answer the question? So basically,
yeah, can I come back on one point? So the most recent sizable grant has obviously been through the mill a bit in terms of back and forth with the school about how there will be wider community use of the facility. Could it be, this is a smaller grant in comparison, I accept that, but could we have as a condition of the grant, for example, that we would be able to host one of our family fun days at Newton this year? Because it sounds like an absolutely perfect venue for an activity for Lydia to run, for example, at one of the family fun events, and we have struggled to get into Newton in the past. So it would be really, that could be good.
I'll have to run it past the governors, but yeah, I mean, from my point of view, it sounds absolutely fine. Yeah, of course. But yeah, I'll run it past the rest of the governors and let you know on that. Yeah.
Okay, Carrie.
Yeah, couple of questions. First of all, they appear to be asking us to provide 100% of funding, which obviously we don't generally do, particularly when it is a school. We usually expect to only provide up to 50%. It's slightly confusing because they're asking us for 100%, but then they're also saying they're asking the parents for 1,000 as well. So I'm not quite sure how that works, but perhaps when you're running it past the governors, you could also perhaps say, you know, would it be possible for this to be subject to a PTA fundraising push to bring our contribution down to 50% of the required funding?
I'll certainly ask that, and I think that's what the 1,000 from memory. I'll have to look over it again. But when I did write it, I think the £1,000 was a realistic, achievable target for the PTA. I'll have to check with the head again because I got information from her. I don't think the 50% is going to be possible in this situation, unfortunately. I don't think there's other funding pressures that the school have used the PTA funds for, and I don't think the PTA raises as much money as other schools do.
I mean, my concern is that it will, we are quite strict with other schools about not providing 100% funding, and it has been a kind of general principle which you know, in previous grants. And my concern is just that there doesn't seem to be any strong precedent, particularly when it's not something which will be an open access facility, for us to break that precedent to give them 100% of funding. So
Yes, fair point. Yeah.
my concern. Okay.
Yeah. The only thing that I would comment on, the comments that have been made, we've just recently done the £20,000 grant application to Grange School. The contribution from the equivalent of the PTA to that was very small, and that was one of the things that were taken into account, because a lot of the people attending that school, the PTA, don't get the resources, they don't get that sort of money coming in. So we did look at that. And of course, the other thing, that the grant, it wasn't a factor that the school was going to be open to the general public. So
Yes, it was.
no,
Sorry, Chair,
Yes.
but point
no,
of
it had to be
information.
done by appointment, Rebecca.
Yeah, but access available to people not attending school in the school day. That was absolutely a major bone of contention,
Yeah.
and part of the reason it took us a
as
year
long,
to get
as
the
long as it,
application
well,
agreed.
if you recollect, the council weren't prepared to leave the gates open to the general public. That's a fact, because
no,
the
I accept-
council, the city council, weren't prepared to provide the insurance for it. Now, with a booking that's been made, that would cover those that come along by city on the insurance side of things. But it isn't a sort of free run for the public to come in and play the game.
And I'm not asking for open access. I'm asking for wider community benefit. So is it going to be possible for groups to book Newton after school hours or in the school holidays? And it seems that the answer is a possible yes, but I personally would like that to be a condition of grant.
Yeah, I think
Great.
that's something that that will have to pass over the pass to the school to see if they would be prepared to do that. But again, I don't know what the timeline is here, Will, whether it's something that can we can give you an opportunity to find out some more information and then come back to the committee, or do you want it settled this evening?
Yeah, I think I'll have to go back with those questions.
Yeah.
Could we write formally though as the community council? I think it'd just be a bit better as a way.
I mean, we can. I think that's what we have to agree as our recommendation once you kind of,
Re-adjourn the meeting and disappear.
answering our questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I will turn my camera off and mic off if you re-adjourn, and I'll disappear.
I will put you in
purgatory.
waiting room if I know how. All right, I'll just put you in the waiting room. There you go. Right.
Okay. Well, subject to the to what's been said and the approval of the school governors, maybe we'll take a vote on that. So what have you got to say on that front, Carrie?
I was just going to suggest that as there are a number of questions, then what we do is we make, we formalize into a clear sort of list of the questions we have. They are sent to the school and we defer a decision until such time as we have those answers from the governors.
Yeah.
Just as we've done with other grants when we need more information.
Yes. Rebecca?
Just to suggest, I mean, it's almost touching our large grants policy, isn't it, at 9,216. So it wouldn't be unreasonable for us to be in a bit more of a negotiating mode.
Yeah.
So what we could do is is formalise an offer. So we could formalise the offer of 50% of the funding, subject to it being bookable outside school hours, subject to a family fun event once a year, say, and see what they say to that. You know, they may well say it's, you know, we can't go ahead with that offer of funding of only 50%, in which case we can kind of work from that, can't we? Or we can't go ahead with bookings outside of school hours. But that would mean that if they say, yes, that sounds great, then we've kind of got a decision and we can move forward.
Good idea. No, I'm happy to
So are
support that
you-
as a recommendation.
So are you suggesting that in future grants, we're going to insist on the 50% contribution from the schools?
I think it's always been council position that it has
Yeah.
to be exceptional circumstances and it has to be a demonstrated need for it to not be 50%. And at the moment, we don't have evidence of that need. I think if they came back to us and said, it's not viable with only 50%, and this is the reason we can't contribute more,
Yeah.
then we would consider that, wouldn't we?
Mhm.
Yes, I think
Okay.
it's wise to make that as a record. You know, it might be that in fact they're happy with that because they don't have a timeline that's immediately urgent, and they do have. I mean, it's not just fundraising by the school. There are other grants available. You know, Oystermouth Primary School got a series of grants from different organisations and put them all
Yes,
together.
yes.
And
Yeah.
and obviously, you know, we would be suggesting to Newton School that they do that to build a package of funding.
Okay. Right then. Well, Paul, you've heard all that, and that's the decision that's going to be taken. That we'll write to the school, offering the 50% with the other conditions, and then Will can then come back to the committee with it.
Okay, so
Yep.
the conditions are access outside of school hours, community access outside of school
Bookable
hours.
access, I think we said bookable access.
Bookable.
Yeah, we're not asking for public, you know, free
Yeah.
for all.
Okay, bookable
No.
access and one family fun
Fun
day
day,
event
yeah.
per year.
Yes.
Okay,
Perhaps we could say at
Okay.
least one family fun day, because we might want to do another one.
okay.
Right. Okay. So
Okay,
that's them
Lovely.
both done. We can
Right,
bring
shall I,
Will back in now.
I'll readmit Will, okay. There we are.
Meeting is recorded.
I'm back.
Hiya.
It's the first time I've ever been in.
Okay. Right.
Been put in the waiting room.
Yeah, in the naughty boys room.
Good music.
Right, let's move forward then to the other factor, of course, is it whatever is agreed, it won't be until next year's budget. Okay,
Yep. Okay.
right. Item number 6. I have to thank Rebecca for this. Thank you, Rebecca. The volunteering policy, and very comprehensive. Anyone got any views on it? You're off. There's no sound, Carrie. It's lovely.
Has everybody seen the volunteering policy? I know Paul has just
Yes,
sent it out.
I have.
It was also circulated in November
It
ahead of
was,
yeah.
council, so I'm
Yeah.
sure you all read it with interest then.
Oh yeah, it was
And
fantastic. Yeah.
There are a few points highlighted in yellow, I think they are, that
I was going to say,
need
do you want me to
decision.
share the screen? Put it up on the screen?
Yeah, if you want to.
Would that be helpful to everyone?
Yeah, it's the WDA one, isn't it? Is it WDA?
So that's a model policy,
Yeah,
and then I've
fine-tuned it.
amended that slightly just to,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay, can everyone see it?
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
if you're happy, and I'm willing to just kind of take you through the points for decision point by point.
yes, yes.
Well, there's not
yeah,
many.
No, I have looked at it, yeah. Mhm.
So if you scroll
Yes.
down to the next page,
Yeah.
Carrie, the first thing to just agree is,
All right, yeah,
there we are. So are we happy that it would be the clerk that would have overall responsibility for development and coordination of voluntary activity within the council?
Yes. Happy with me.
Seems fairly
Yep.
uncontentious.
yeah.
Secondly, this is just a point as a reminder really that staff responsibilities for volunteers should be in their job description. So probably should have mentioned that before personnel took place.
All
So
right,
yeah.
it didn't happen, don't worry. So
Oh,
we
right. Great, we can go
we
back to
will
that
make
then.
sure that, and it is, I know, included in grounds person, but we can make sure it's included in the others, yes.
Marvelous. Okay, so the next one is just at the top of the next page. Under the volunteers can expect to.
Oh, yes.
So it's good practice according to the WCVA to offer out-of-pocket expenses. So that would be travel at the usual rates. And by a prior agreement, any caring costs, childcare or respite care, whatever it might be. And then of course, if they, you know, I don't know, bought a bag of compost for one of our sites or whatever, you know, they would expect that that would be reimbursed, obviously. It shouldn't cost a lot to the council, to be honest, because most of our volunteers will be local.
Yeah.
They're probably going to walk or cycle or whatever. So yeah, but it's just, you know, it needs agreement that we're going to have that in there because it will have a minimal cost.
Yeah, it's happy with, yeah, I think that's fair. And, you know, it might encourage perhaps people who might be, you know, otherwise, you know, feel that they weren't able to volunteer regularly because of the costs. If we can, you know, reassure them that those costs are covered, I think it will really help.
Okay.
Yep.
Brill. And then moving down, the bit in blue is just to remind those of us that are looking at the Welsh language policy to include that in there. So scroll past that, that's fine. And then this bit, so the suggestion is that volunteers should have the opportunity to meet each other. And most organisations do this through an annual event during Volunteer Week, which I think is June.
Okay.
Again, an inexpensive event, you know, put on soft drinks and a bit of cake and just sometimes print some certificates if people have done like a good number of hours or whatever. But just a bit of a social really, and it is really lovely. I've been in other voluntary organisations where it's a kind of a real kind of re-energizing for volunteers. So yeah, again, just if we're going to have it in the policy, we need to make sure we do it. So are we happy to agree that we will?
Yep.
Excellent. This is all going very smoothly.
Yeah.
And then just further down a little bit, okay, so the expenses bit we've covered, but just above that is informal resolution. I've pointed people to the concerns and complaints policy, which may feel a bit heavy-handed. I mean, this is so unlikely to come up, isn't it, with the sort of volunteering that we do. And then also what we haven't got yet, and this is probably for the policies subcommittee, is we don't have anything that says how inappropriate behaviour will be dealt with.
Yeah.
So I think probably that's a sort of, you know, we need to prioritise that for policies subcommittee, I think is probably the answer.
Yes, I think, yeah, because that can be a concern that, you know, you do sometimes get people wanting to volunteer who do have some inappropriate behaviours towards other volunteers, and we've got to have a way of dealing with that.
Yeah, and just to clarify, like this isn't people being, you know, acting criminally.
No.
The vast majority of instances, it's things like, you know, volunteers have shared contact numbers between each other because they volunteer regularly, and then one volunteer is messaging all the time or like sharing stuff that the other person just isn't interested in, and then it's, you know, how would we manage that sort of situation? So it's sort of that like softer touch, but important that you address it, because otherwise the volunteers just disappear.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so if everyone's happy, we'll refer that to the policy subcommittee, and I think everything else everyone agrees with. So with that, we can adopt that.
That's it, isn't it? Yep. Excellent. Yeah, no,
that's fine.
good.
That'll go to full council now, Rebecca, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, it should just be a tick box for the full council because they have looked at it already.
Yeah.
So now basically we can just unhighlight all those because they're now all areas that have been agreed, and yeah, it can go to full council. Fantastic. Thanks, Rebecca. I'll stop sharing the screen. There we are.
Just one thing about that event, the annual thing.
Oh, yes.
Whose job are we making that? Like, is it going to be a committee?
It's a good point, because there probably should be a committee who has some sort of overall responsibility for just making sure volunteers, you know, and perhaps it should be this committee, that perhaps maybe somewhere in the policy it should say that, you know, this committee will, you know, just, you know, provide, you know, a kind of, you know, advice and support where necessary for volunteers. I don't know, some sort of wording.
Or we could just make it part of the our event manager's job to just, you know, add it to the
Yeah.
MCC calendar of events. I think it's one less thing for us to remember. And I think obviously we'd have to put all these, you know, they could circulate something once a year. Does anyone else think any organisations we should add to this year? Or so before each year they just, you know, message all councillors to remind them. But I think
Yeah.
you know, it's not a hard one or a complex one, is it really?
No, it just needs someone to remember.
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I
exactly,
think you're
yeah.
right. If we actually put it into our events calendar, then I
Yeah.
think that makes sense. And if we sort of say it will always be in volunteer week, then we've got a kind of a date that we know we can work with each year.
Okay,
Thanks.
right. Item number 7, the budget monitoring report. Paul has sent this out.
Yeah, I don't think it's gone to the whole committee, Chair. Shall I share the screen? So
Yes, I think
Oh,
it
yeah.
may be helpful, yes.
Can you do
please.
that, or do I have to give you permission?
look,
Oh, there we are. I'll put multiple participants, so that should let you share now.
Hmm.
don't know why it's not coming up. Hang on.
Oh,
I have opened it.
yeah, and it does say multiple participants, so it should allow you to do it.
Is
Ah, got it. Yeah.
No, that's not the one.
that well, that's the budget monitoring report. I think you may be thinking of the budget report, Chair, is it?
Yeah, we deal with this
That's
first,
the
then
next
we go on
item.
to the budget.
Oh, right. Yeah,
this is
it
the
was
budget
the other
monitoring
one I was
report.
talking about, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's been circulated.
This one's
No
going
real
back.
issues with anything apart from, I think, the hybrid meeting equipment. There is an overspend on that, and I think there's a
Okay.
few more things have been purchased as well.
Yeah,
Which were part, I don't know why they were part of the report that went to council. Report that went to council to purchase the equipment said something in the region of 8,000.
Yes, I thought so.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
don't know why he wasn't picked up when the budget was set. But
yeah,
what I've suggested there is the only real area where there's likely to be an underspend in this financial year is evaluation services, unless the committee does have any plans to do anything this year in terms of evaluation.
I did ask actually to go on the agenda for this meeting, but it doesn't seem to have gone on. There's also £5,000 unspent for the mural, which we're clearly not going to get done this year. Because we haven't found a suitable location for it, as much as anything. So can that 5,000 be repurposed?
You could, but that's a year-mark reserve. So once it's spent, it's spent.
Okay. Do we
You would
want to
have to-
make a decision as to whether we move that on the basis that the likelihood of a mural is looking less possible?
Sorry.
I think the situation with the mural is it's waiting for the owner of the building to re-render the building. the old chip shop.
Mhm.
And I know, I think Claire was in touch with him a while ago, over a year ago, I would say now. But once that's been re-rendered, and then when the scaffolding's up, then that was the plan then to do the mural. But as you say, nothing's happened for for many months.
Yeah. Well, it's a decision to be taken here if you so wish. I would rather it was left there, but you know, there has been considerable delays in the development of the property that we were talking about.
There's a couple of people with their hands up, Ian.
Well, I can't see anyone, only you.
Oh, well, Rebecca and Will both have their hands up.
Well, okay, Rebecca and Will.
Will was
all
first.
I've got is the budget monitoring report in front
I
of me.
think you were first, Rebecca. I just put my virtual hand up first, so I will give way to you, like a
Oh,
gentleman.
goodness me. The civility in this meeting is killing me. Yeah, so my question was about the mural, which Paul has partly answered. First question, do you know if a contractor for the painting of the mural has been chosen?
No, the intention was to use Fresh Creative.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And when it was going to be on the Chinese takeaway, they did come up with a plan or a design, but this time they refused to until we actually placed the order.
Yeah, fair enough,
Fair
isn't it,
point.
after that experience?
Unbelievable.
So
No.
I guess my comment is I don't particularly want to lose that when there's clearly a proper vision for it. And even if that fell through, I'm actually looking at a painting of a mural in West Cross. So I assure you there will be other opportunities for painting of murals, even if you don't choose my one. I would say if we haven't spent anything on evaluation yet, and our evaluation provider is usually very reasonably priced, we're not likely to spend £3,000 in the next couple of months. So it seems reasonable that environment from there is done, and we would still then have £1,000 to pay for whatever we thought was a good idea. Excuse me a minute, my battery's about to die, so I'll just run around finding a charger.
Right, do you want to come in, Will?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. The new operating model at Stream there, 25,000 for budget. Is that staff member or is that something else?
It's everything that we would be responsible for paying for once the new agreement has been signed.
Okay. So
The way
there's
it's been,
obviously
sorry, just to say, the way it's been used in the budget is that's been wired across to the Ostream Centre, because it did pay for the 2 staff and for the other things that we're responsible for, like the IT and phone for the Ostream office, the music license. I think increased insurance as well. So that's it's partly been used in the current year, and the rest has been wired forward to next year in the budget, which you'll see in the next item.
obviously there's income to offset against that, though, isn't there, from the whole hire and what have you? So it's not.
That income has been taken into account, and is still using up that 25,000, because that
Oh,
was
okay,
mandatory
right.
income.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Cheers. That was the question.
Yeah, could I just come in as well? Sorry, you can't see us all, Ian. The other budget, of course, which we're probably and almost certainly not going to spend, is the rest of the training courses, because I don't think we're going to spend £3,640 worth of training between now and the end of March. As I say, I would like to think we can commission some sort of annual review of this year from our evaluator. I agree with Rebecca, he is very reasonable, but I wouldn't want to kind of be sort of saying you've only got £1,000 if he says, well, I could do X, Y, and Z if I, and it would cost this. So maybe we look at both of those as kind of an option, because we're not going to spend 3,640 on training.
I
Rebecca,
think
are
that
you
does,
back?
that does seem probably the better budget to use. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, sorry, I've just taken down my legacy hand, but I would agree with that.
Right. So are we agreeing to make those adjustments then as far as the training courses and the evaluation services? Are we?
Sorry,
We're
I would,
saying-
I think we've kind of shifted it from evaluation services to training because it's a much bigger budget and definitely will not all be spent.
There is sufficient in there to cover that
Yeah.
overspend.
Yeah. Okay, and we're leaving the mural where it is,
Yeah,
right? And the new operating model you'll see on the next budget draft. What's happened to that?
Okay, shall I share that screen now, Chair?
Yes, if they're happy with all that, yes.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll share that one then, yeah. Okay, most of these are self-explanatory, but with regards to, this is for you, Rebecca, small and medium grants was set at 45,000. But there had been discussions with the culture and tourism. They'd had discussions with Paul Whitaker, the Mumbles traders, and he was wanting to have an allowance of £12,000. And I, for one, was rather concerned that immediately, that we'd be, I know it wouldn't go to him in one hit. It would be over a period of time on the different events that he provides. But it would be quite a sum to come out of the 45. So anyway, it's shown as a separate item underneath the small and medium grants. I don't know how you feel about that.
Can I come in?
Yeah.
So just in terms of like grants procedure, which everybody knows I'm a proper nerd about, we always hoped that these like large recurring grants would be agreed with the grant recipient in time for them to be factored in as individual items in the budget. So that's just this happening for the first time ever, which is fantastic.
yes, I totally
Um,
agree.
However, £12,000 seems a lot of money.
Well,
especially
I've had no part to play in it. This was something that was dealt with with culture and tourism, and so it didn't. I've made it quite clear to Paul and to Steve that hadn't been discussed at finance. I haven't discussed it other than with Paul, and throughout that discussion, the Mumbles Trader annual grant was shown as a separate item. Now, if you want to change that, that's fine. But the other thing I clarified, Paul was kind enough to provide a sort of target figure of what his grants had amounted to in the past year, and that's in the region of £7,000. So that's gone from 7 up to 12, but there will be an extra. There is the matter concerning the coronation, whether that's something that we should be in a position to discuss. That remains to be seen, or whether it will be discussed by cultural and tourism. We've just got to watch how we play it. I get sensitive if somebody starts spending our money without the committee knowing about it.
yeah.
So, but that's where we are.
So,
Yeah, I can give you a breakdown of that 12,000 if that would be helpful.
oh, that would be
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah, what Paul Whitaker's put forward is 1,650 for flags and bunting for St David's Day. Nothing for the coronation. Well, actually, there's a question mark for the coronation.
Yeah.
1650 for Here Comes the Summer. 1650 for the Mumbles Classic Car Show. 3,650 for Food Festival. And 3,600 for Mumbles Christmas trees.
okay, I've got a couple of comments there. One is that we have vast quantities, as far as I know, still of flags and bunting in the cupboard in our office. So I would suggest we can immediately say, don't worry, we will sort out flags and bunting. Because we have access to that from the office.
Sorry to interrupt you, but was that our bunting or was that the bunting that he put up for us?
No, it's ours.
No, it's ours.
Yeah,
It's
we've,
ours.
yeah,
But
we've used it.
the main cost bunting is tend to be putting it up, you know, with the
Yeah.
two people with the scaffolding or
Mm.
ladder or what have you. That's the main cost of bunting.
Okay. Anyway, my main thought was, I mean, that was just a sort of to tell him to make sure he knows not to go out and buy a load because we've got plenty. You know, it was 7,000 last year.
It was actually 7,800.
Right, I would prefer us, particularly as this is the first year, and you know, it will give us a chance to review it, that we perhaps reduce that down to something nearer to equivalent to what was requested this year. So maybe, I don't know, maybe maximum 9,000 or even 8,000. And that, you know, we see how that goes and how well, you know, because with all these things, you know, it does require, it's not a matter of us just handing over a blank check and he gets on, you know, we would need to make sure that we have very clear feedback from him and reports from him of exactly what the money has been spent on. And this, I think, where there's been a problem in the past, that we haven't, that money's gone out, but we've never actually been able to see how or where it was spent. And I know certainly Paul would like somewhere in our grants policy for us to make sure that there is a repayment, you know, a section in our grants application guidance that says if an event does not take place and money has already been paid out, that money will be returned.
Well, those are all very valid points, and you know, I'm glad there is some discussion on this, but I believe it has been had by cultural and tourism. So maybe we need to, you know, get greater detail from them, or either from Mr. Whitaker.
Perhaps if culture have had all these discussions, perhaps it should be in culture budget, not in our budget.
Well, I think that was considered, I believe, but it was decided that it should come through to finance and compliance. So
Yeah, having done that, then it's, if they've asked us to put it into this budget, then it is for us to set the rules, to be honest. You know, it's not for us to say, well, culture have had all these discussions and this is what they want. It's for us to say, it's part of our budget and these are the requirements we have in order to ensure that we have accountable spending of this money.
Yeah, well, I accept that, but you know, we haven't been party to all the detail. So
Sorry, Chair, could I come in there? If I just to explain, I was at a culture meeting before Christmas, and I think where this was first raised, I think the intention was it was going to be part of the culture budget, but then Rebecca reminded the committee of the options that are in the small and medium grants budget. So I don't think they've had any discussions with Paul Whitaker. It's just he's emailed in his request. So I don't think they certainly haven't had any discussions, which I'm sure Phil would confirm if he was here. But it would be part of this committee's budget if it's decided to be a part of the small and medium grants budget.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we do like we've done or we plan to do with the school. We make him an offer. And we say, this is what we would recommend. And we put the criteria within which we would be prepared to pay out the money. And it's for him really to, then make a case for anything other.
Can I come in, Chair?
Yep.
I think we always forget when we're dealing with Paul Whitaker and Mumbles Traders is that what we're actually dealing with is the traders organisation, not just Paul. Paul's obviously the front, and I don't know. I've not been to a traders meeting for a hell of a long time, but say he's probably a very large part of the organisation, I'm sure, right? But nevertheless, it is a association of the traders in Mumbles, right? So I think for us to tell them how to spend their money is a little bit condescending. I personally would like to see a bit more money spent on infrastructure stuff rather than just events all the time. Better bins up Newton Road. A lot of them have been replaced anyway. It's a bad example, but some curbing, more parking, less parking, move the parking, that sort of stuff. I would like to see us engage with the traders a lot more on those things, but this is what they're coming to us with. So, I think Mumbles Action Group had quite a detailed debate on there the other day about what should MCC be doing for Mumbles traders. And I think everyone, we do need to think about what we should be doing, and maybe it's down to us to have a deeper conversation with Paul about, what is it that the traders want or what should they have. And I myself have met with many different traders on Newton Road and others, but as a collective, Paul's got that voice, so it's a very small amount of money when you think of what it is as an organization, is what I'm trying to say. At the end of the day, it's all the traders in Mumbles being represented, and they're asking for £12,000. So when you think of it like that, it's actually absolute peanuts. But I understand that it's a big jump on the event side and things. So there's two ways to look at it, is what I'm trying to say.
We've lost Paul.
We are still recording. I think we can probably.
Yeah, I'm just saying if there's any decisions to be made, can somebody make sure they're written down, because they'll need to be passed to Paul because he's seems to have lost his connection.
Can I just come in on what Will said, Ian?
Yeah.
Yeah, all valid points, well made, really. In the grants policy is when you're looking at an annual grant, it is a partnership. So I would anticipate that we would be having regular conversations with Paul Whitaker and or other representatives of Mumbles traders. And it is actually fab that Phil is on both this committee and chair of culture, because he has that kind of foot in both camps thing. So I think for me, the challenge is jumping from £7,800 in grant applications this year to 12,000. And nothing that our Paul read out kind of struck me as above and beyond what they did last year. I mean, £8,500 brings you to just about where they were plus inflation. So that seems to me to be a sort of.
Hello, Paul.
Hiya, can you hear us?
You're back.
Are you online with us now?
Yeah, he seems to be back.
Okay, thanks very much. Bye. Sorry about that. Paul is rejoining now.
Can you hear us, Paul? It's very disconcerting having Rosie's face
Yeah,
up.
I can hear you.
I know. Thanks, Paul.
See if I can reshare.
So I guess what I was just proposing, Paul, as you were coming in, 8,500, and for a fixed term, I mean, maybe a 3-year starter term. and then it can be reviewed, can't it?
But yeah, I think that sounds like a
What
good
was it?
starting point.
Right. Okay, well, Will, you're on mute.
I go back to the comments with officially CC. Could we have a meeting with the traders about
We
things
can't
other
hear
than
you well.
events as well?
You're breaking up, Will.
You've gone all slow motion.
What about now? Can you hear me now?
Oh, that's better.
Hmm.
Is that better?
Nope, lost
Sorry,
you.
I don't know what happened. Could if we make if the don't know, not sure. I'll leave.
Everybody's
one of those
internet's
nights.
having a moment.
God, blimey. Anyway, the proposal from Rebecca was what, for 8.5?
Yeah.
8.5.
Right,
Now,
if we
if-
just
if
give
we
Will a
make a deci-
second to come back in.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to vote just yet.
Oh, okay.
But if we were to vote on that, and then we get approached by Mr. Whitaker, or we get approached by cultural and tourism, would we be able to revisit it to increase it?
I would say we make that an offer, and also I think we link in with that that we can annually review it within a 3-year. We'll say it's for 3 years, but with an annual review, and therefore, if it's looking like there's actually a lot of things, but I think somewhere along the line we do have to build in regular meetings with Mumbles traders, and perhaps I know Paul is like the front man, but I'm aware that he doesn't by any means represent all the traders, and I think we need to make sure that we do allow the traders to have some sort of a voice. Maybe it's us sending out some a quick questionnaire or something to all the businesses, just to say, are these the things you want? Is it working well? Is this helping you? So we've just got some sort of justification and feedback, and then if Paul does come back and want more, we've got something to work with.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
Chair, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was saying, yeah, all I want is to just have a meeting with the traders about things other than events, basically. So if we officially back EC, if we could suggest that we have a meeting, this committee, maybe he comes and speaks to us about improvements that we can make that aren't events related, because I think that's one big thing that's missing, which hopefully will come out of that place plan as well that we've got in the budget for next year. So I'm sure that'll be one thing, but the traders' feedback will be most helpful as well. Thanks.
okay, well, we'll take a vote on it, and I'm not sure if I got the whole gist of what you said then. It still wasn't terribly clear in Newton, but £8,500, but to have a meeting with Paul Whitaker to see if he can look at other benefits for the traders, not just necessarily Newton Road, but I think we could certainly try and do something about the signage on Newton Road and the signage leading from the car parks down on South End to Newton Road and the top shops. Is that the sort of thing you were talking about, Will?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, let's have a big conversation, and see where it goes. But yeah, that sort of thing.
Okay, so we all agreed then on the 8,500. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Chair, sorry, before you move on from regular grants.
Yeah.
It's never my intention to give a curveball, but I'm afraid on this occasion I have got one, which is that I've been made aware that the West Cross Youth Club have also put in a regular grant application for 3 years, but they did it just after the agenda for this meeting was fixed. So I don't mind. I hope people don't mind if I just sort of say that they've applied for 5,000 a year for 3 years, which is in line with what they've had from us before, and it has been massively successful. So obviously we would need to consider the actual application when it comes in, but have we got scope to kind of put that tentatively in our budget so that it doesn't get lost and we don't wish in a month's time that we'd put it in?
Yeah, I think we have to, if we've done that for the traders, then I think we have to look at other opportunities, particularly when they are in other parts of our area where perhaps the grants policy is perhaps less used. So I don't know how we put it in. I think that probably Paul could only answer that.
We can add it to the budget. Obviously, it's a decision for council then whether it goes in next week. But then I suppose there'd be another decision to be made then when the application comes in. Whether I suppose this committee first wants to recommend it, and then whether council wants to do it. So it would be useful if the money's in the budget.
Yeah.
When the application came forward.
Yeah, well, I'd be quite happy with that, but I do reiterate, we're talking the 23-24 budget, of course. And so
if I add another line in the draft budget for, was it West Cross Youth Club?
Yes.
£5,000?
West Cross Youth Club, yes. I must be honest, I'm a proponent for supporting such things, and it may seem there's a lot happening in West Cross one way or another, but that sort of thing, I'm sure it's helpful to the area.
And people do come from all over the MCC area.
Do they?
Mm.
Yeah,
Well, that's
I
nice
think
to
it's
know.
something we should perhaps promote more, is that things like that, where we're conscious we are giving regular amounts of money to particular, like Sculpture by the Sea is another one, that we actually encourage them to come to us with a kind of, a plan that we can then kind of build those in as an annual payment each year. I just think, the more we can do that for our kind of regulars, the less work it is for us, really.
Well, we could have a policy for such a thing, and I think that seems to be the consensus anyway. But we've already dealt with Sculpture by the Sea. They've had their grant, and this West Cross one is a new one. So anyway, you've got the details, Paul. Yes.
Yeah, I've got that. I'll add that to the draft budget for council next week.
Okay.
Yeah, I
also-
just think maybe, after the budget, at some point, it's worth us looking back at where we see that we are actually making regular grant donations. People are asking us year after year for very similar things, that we can go to those organizations and say, would it make sense for them to look at a kind of 3-year agreement with us, so that it reduces work on both sides. I mean, I know Sculpture by the Sea have already put those in for this year, but that doesn't mean that we can't talk to them about, making it more of a regular thing following that.
I don't see that it burdens us with a great deal of work, to be perfectly honest, but it does give the applicant the opportunity to forecast ahead a little bit further than the way that they currently operate. So that may be helpful to them. But we'll look at that after the budgets that are set then, yes?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, now the other thing that needs, I'm sure you've noticed it, the Austrian Centre new operating model, that money is now gone into the Austrian Centre development cost, yes?
No, not the development costs, into the Ostream Centre cost centre itself. So it's under the Ostream budget for running the building. The Ostream
Okay,
Centre development costs is a new budget put in because, well, in case Down to Earth can't raise any the full grant funding that we've asked them to look for, or if they do find some grant funding that it requires match funding.
okay. All right.
Sorry, I have a question on that. I suppose it's a huge chunk of money when we are looking to try and keep our precept down as much as possible, and we're already having to deal with 10% increases pretty much all round because of inflation. I'm just a bit concerned that asking for an additional 50,000, yes, I know we really want to move forward with the Ostream, but you know, do we want to maybe sort of try and say this is something that we perhaps would have to defer to next year when perhaps costs are a bit easier?
I mean, I don't think we need this. Paul, just to double check, this 50,000 is nothing that's committed to this point. This is future, or is this include some of the down?
No, it doesn't include Down to Earth. This would be the design team to put together the design for the Ostream up to planning approval stage, planning permission stage.
Okay, I don't, obviously, the reason we got Down to Earth, or the whole purpose for what they're doing, is trying to raise this funding to do that. So that 50 grand is very unlikely to be needed for the full extent of that, because that is literally the full cost of it. So we hope that they will achieve at least 50% funding. And I hope at the meeting we have on the 7th that we can, you know, we can have some good news that we've secured some funding for this process. So I don't think it's going to cost anywhere near that figure. So I think we can safely put it down. But if we couldn't put it down, then I would still personally want to keep it in, because I see it as our next flagship project after the skate park Underhill. And I think it's really important that we can keep that going. But I think we safely put that at 25, 30. And I think that'd be safe anyway.
Right. Well, do you want to reduce it, or are you going to leave it?
Rebecca's got her hand up and I've got mine up. So Rebecca was next.
If I could
okay,
just,
Rebecca,
if you don't mind, if I could just say one more thing before you guys start, is that we have a meeting on the 7th with the Ostream working group has a meeting with Down to Earth on the 7th, I believe. So
yeah.
We will know more after that. But yeah.
All I was going to say is that I think it's very difficult to make decisions about specific projects without the budget in full. And I think it's the role of committee to put forward a reasonable ask, I suppose. And then it's for full council to look at that budget in the round and look at where the priorities are. I mean, personally, I agree that this is our next flagship project and I do want to see it progress. I don't want us to lose a lot of the momentum that we've built up with Down to Earth. But my personal approach to this would be, if 50,000 is what, you know, would be our kind of, in an ideal world, we're not taking the mick, but you know, it's what we would want to put in there, then put it in there. And if we get to full council and actually we've got to make, like last year, 100 grand's worth of savings or whatever it was, then we would look at reducing it.
Yeah, that's fair comment.
Okay, I was sort of going to say similar. I suppose I totally take on board what Will said, that we probably won't need it. The problem is, if it's in the budget now, it goes into pushing our precept up by you know, whatever is needed for that 50,000. even though it might not be needed, it's too late once the precept is set. And the reality is we would have to cut 50,000 off other projects in order to retain the 50,000 here. So if we could perhaps reduce that to say 30,000, it just means we've got less to cut elsewhere to keep the books balanced.
I agree with the comment from earlier Rebecca made. Let's see where we are, and it can be the
Okay.
first thing. It can be the first thing to be trimmed down if after the meeting that we have down to earth that reflects that, and also we do need to make savings. So yeah.
Yeah, it can't be done after the meeting because the budget's set next Tuesday. You know, it's either it'll be basically the decision has to be made next Tuesday as to
Okay,
whether it
maybe-
goes in the budget or not in the budget. So I mean, Rebecca said we leave it in there, we throw it out to the budget meeting. It's up to full council if they feel that they would rather retain that 50,000 in other projects, then that's down to them, and we just see what they say. I just thought maybe if we cut it to 30,000, it might be more acceptable. It's a big chunk of money to be looking at as new money on a year when we're trying to reduce the budget. And I'm just worried that people will look and say 50,000. We can't possibly do that. We've got to get rid of that. Whereas maybe if it was less, they might be more kind of.
I don't think they will, Carrie.
You reckon?
I think this is a massive project, isn't it? And it's,
You know,
I think residents understand that it's, it's a big thing that MCC are undertaking.
maybe we could put that argument in that we've had to put the precept up because we know how important it is for our residents that this work is done. Maybe we use that.
Well,
as the
hang on a
argument.
minute, we're getting ahead of ourselves now because we don't even know whether we've got to put the precept up.
Well, we do. I can tell. Paul's just told me it's 200,000 over at the moment.
Well, that is information the rest of us don't have, Carrie. So
I know. Sorry, but it's.
If we
it's
keep the
big,
precept the same.
There's a lot of money we got to lose.
Okay. Well, would you like to vote on it? Or shall
Yeah, it
we
would
leave
be
it as
handy
it
to
is?
have that information at the beginning of the meeting, but yeah, well, we've sort of debated it through now. So
Yeah, I think the reason you didn't know it is because that's only at the moment. There's still 2 more committees to go. So that
I'm
could
sure
change.
making.
So
Yeah,
that's only a
okay.
figure, a rough figure at the moment.
Well, I remember once we were 500 grand over, so we managed to shave that down. So yeah,
goodness me.
it can be done.
And it was
So-
a ruthless meeting to get it down, I remember.
So it sounds to me like we've got agreement that, this is our ideal figure. It could come down to 30. So I think let's keep, let's put
Okay.
that to
Yeah.
council, and let it be hashed out there. Is my
I-
view.
The other thing, doing a bit of game theorying on this, is that if you reduce this to 25, a 25 will get added on somewhere else
Yeah,
that
maybe.
wasn't on today. Do you know what I
Maybe.
mean? So that's something else that might happen. So yeah, let's leave it in for now and use it
Leave
as a
as is, yeah.
yeah.
And it's
We'll leave
always,
it as is.
it's always, I guess, good to have some wiggle room because people will inevitably ask for it to be cut. So I guess if we throw in 50 and they ask us to cut it, we can still probably get away with 30.
Good.
We're letting our negotiation tactics. Hopefully, none of them are sad enough to watch this recording back.
Okay. Right. So, have you seen enough of that?
Yep,
That's it, isn't it? We've done it.
we got through it.
I think we're done now, aren't we?
It looks like it.
Yeah.
This is fast
Um,
becoming my favourite meeting of the week.
Oh, you
It's a
do
high
flatter.
bar, isn't
You
it?
do flatter. Paul, did you make sense of that discussion?
Yes, yeah, I got that.
Good.
So
It's
only an extra
important-
5,000
it's
going on this committee.
important to have a discussion. It's far better that way. And No, I think everyone has to be realistic and appreciate that it's just a pity that the date that that Will said, the 7th, we'll be making decisions beforehand. But anyway, we are where we are. Well, if you're all in agreement to end, we'll end. And thank you for your all of you for your good manners, myself included. And
Right,
Well,
thanks, everyone.
oh, by the way,
Good
before you go,
recording.
Carrie, you want to have a personnel meeting tomorrow?